All right, here we go again. So I'm waiting for the spirits to indicate what pages to go to. There's a lot of block on it, so wait for it to open up. There's a lot of spirits involved, and then there's like an okay that occurs, and then I get to do it. Sometimes people still flame me and block me. This one Lakota guy ended up blocking me. I didn't realize it was blocked from him. Probably said something, tried to make a reasonable argument, and some are just hacks, political hacks. You can't really reason with them reasonably. So I just remembered when I left the government, Joe Kent may have even been drugged. I'm not sure where he is in all this. The deep state's operating him. But again, who, when, where, could be Russians, could be Iranians, could be a bunch of different people and some Americans. Well, because I went back to when I left the government, I didn't want anything to do with the war or anything like that, or war. It wasn't until 2000. I left in like 2004, 2007. I looked at it and I said, these people, like I wrote senators and congressmen when I was in Naples, and I said, you got to help government employees. They have to have a better work environment. Having all this all this again. I didn't even realize the No Fear Act existed. That's actually they violated the No Fear Act every day in every way, whenever they wanted. That's how John ended up dead. I couldn't believe it when I knew nothing when I was in government. When I got out of government, I was No Fear Act. They were killing me. I mean, actually, it could have been written based upon something they were sensing from me, because they were killing me in like 2001 or so. I think that's when they did the No Fear Act. So I'm like, No Fear Act, what BS? So I didn't want anything to do with war. So again, he's probably in that mode. The deep state is trying to take him out and cause him not to be employable because they want their person in. That's probably really what's happening. And he could have been drugged. Who knows? Right. Yeah, trying to do a Jonathan Luna on him. Making sure. And a Larry Moore. And everybody else that they took out. A Deputy Director Duffy. But see, he's got training, so he handles it differently. He survives it, but that's one of the outcomes. They know that you just become like an anti-war dude. He's not totally an anti-war dude, but he's probably almost there. So in 2007, I figured, they're still there. What are they still doing there? That doesn't make any sense. So I started helping with suggestions of a surge, and they did a surge, but they did it wrong. You had to go into Pakistan. That's what would have made it work. Like really go into Pakistan, make that part of it. Like no invisible border, kind of into Pakistan, and then of course Iran. We couldn't go into Iran, but we would be if we were able to just to erase the border of Pakistan and go in from like 2007, 2008, then Iran would have been more manageable. But again, the Russians were probably helping them and everything. That's what I figured was going on. So he could still. So what happened is I didn't want anything to do with it. He doesn't want anything to do with it now. But in a couple of years, if something comes up, he may start helping you the way I'm trying to help. And I did help. Right. I did say that you needed to get out of the war because you just can't stay. It becomes fruitless, and it makes it worse. Like all of a sudden, they were able to manipulate all that. What do they call that? Fratricide or intentional fratricide. Because you stay too long, and then your collateral damage, mounts up. Right. Now, what happened is you don't have the right people in the agency, and they may have been, okay, let's get rid of this guy. I don't like him. They're not simple in the mind. I mean, they're just simpletons. Right. You know, they're like sociopaths, narcissists, so they're using like the stuff on coworkers. Right. Because he's not really an operational spy. He's the military side of it. Right. So the operators may have wanted to take him out. Maybe they didn't trust him because he wasn't, piece of shit like them. Yeah, it looks like now that I think about it, because it just opened up in my mind. Because I'm thinking, why would he do that? Well, he shouldn't be going public like that. So again, like I said, he lost his military bearing going so far public. And I mean, he's got a much better life than I do. Yeah, I think they tried to set him up. He's reacting to that in whatever way he is. Well, they could be intentionally ruining him so the government can't use him. So he becomes anti-war, kind of. It's been a weird day. I haven't made a pizza in so long. And I said, like for my Thanksgiving, I had these tins here. So I slapped some olive oil in there. I didn't use any yeast. I just used whole wheat flour and some water, and then lined the tray with it. I don't know what's going on in the war planning, so yeah, I guess I didn't finish it. As far as like Joe Kent, somebody should have said, well, he's done this many tours. Like maybe a year ago or 6 months ago, even. But he's done this many tours. Maybe something's up with that. His wife got killed. So again, the agency, I got no idea what they think's happening, but it doesn't make any sense. Well, I mean, you have people with PTSD and has had all sorts of whack stuff happen to them. I'm sure you've had people go out on disability. That's why I'm saying it looks like deep state. So, but there's an operation to cause him to be anti-war. They used it on me and include drugging me. I guarantee it. That's how they got John to kill himself. Yeah, you just say you're a, a this or that. You're an MFer, and none of it makes any sense when they do it. But they prep you so you don't you really don't protect yourself enough. Right. And it's just you can't. I mean, it's highly illegal. I mean, the people that did it should be in prison, probably for life. Well, it's essentially like a CIA team of people just focusing on a person that probably doesn't know what's actually going on. So they can manipulate him to go, hang out with Carlson because they can use that to destroy him. No, it's PTSD. I mean, I went through it and I was able to overcome it. So at a certain point, I started helping with the war, and it's kind of decision like if I'm not helping, if I'm not going to say if I don't say this, then we're going to sit there, and we ended up sitting there a lot more years. But if they did what I said, I told them to do a surge, and I can't remember when I pointed out the Vietnam scenario. It may have been then, because you can't have a North Vietnam where it doesn't work, because continually moving weaponry and IEDs from Iran and all that. Right. So both Pakistan and Iran, I was focusing more on Iran, and it was a good call. The location I wanted them to go to was where Bin Laden was right in line, because we had to travel from Afghanistan north. Right. I think into that one section. I have to look at the map again. I had it all. But it would have taken us straight through where Bin Laden was hiding, which probably would have caused him to move. Right. He probably would have went north, I would think, but he would have been flushed out. So to where I think Bo Bergdahl was north of him, where they held him, and that was a stronghold. Well, he's probably just pretty much whacked out. I think that's where we really are with it. From again, it's a positive feature. You need somebody to worry about what's going to happen, but again, the idea of just trusting the system to work it out. It's again, and calling it an Israel war. I mean, we're talking about Iran. Yeah, I don't know what you all think's going on, but Biden was part of the plan. Okay. So, well, obviously, when Israel, I knew what was going on when Israel. Maybe they changed it to me because I got so mad about the kids. Maybe they just said, "Look, there's a bigger plan," and I knew there was a bigger plan. Right. Well, it's not just Israel. It's the idea that we need Iran gone. Right. If Biden had won another term, he probably would have been even doing it more. Well, because he's an older guy. I mean, yeah, for all his faults, he was still an older person from back when, the whole thing happened to begin with. Right. Well, he probably agreed that Iran needed to go. And if Israel had a plan, let's try to work it. So it isn't like, the idea isn't that Israel came up with it on their own. So it's not this Israel idea. It's just, again, if we'd have handled this 10 years ago, it probably would have been better. And may even have had some more success in those other wars. Right. And again, there's good Islamists and there's bad Islamists. Just like there's good Christians and bad Christians. So we're not here to just say, oh, it's racist to identify bad Islamists. That thing that guy put online from somewhere in the United States, where he was talking about terrorism as if it's, a higher way of thinking is insane. Agreed. I mean, what he's saying is true about other things, but not that thing. I mean, I sacrificed my whole life for God pretty much in the end because, I'm not going to be somebody that isn't going to help God. is what really needs to be done. So again, yeah, there is that idea of what he was talking about exists, but not as a terrorist. Right. There is an idea where you no longer worry about life here, but it doesn't mean actually becoming a terrorist says that you are worried about that, right? That you're trying to change this place. Well, the Quran speaks about mercy. And if you really don't, and if you're going after somebody because they're Christian or you think a Muslim is a better person, then you don't understand mercy. It's actually reversed. Like the chosen people, it's in the Quran too. But the idea of being a chosen person is to realize the reversal. As a chosen person, you have more responsibility to others and more responsibility for mercy. But when God tells you something, you have a requirement to think through it, not just be a fool for the devil. But again, a lot of it's scam. Like the Iranian government, it's just another secret society of crooks. Right? Right. I'm gonna cook this up first. I put the topping on before. I'm gonna preheat the pre-cook the crust just to make it easier. I'm making another pizza. I'm using that Velveeta. I mean, it's not like state of the art, but that Velveeta is actually a lower fat cheese. I think it actually even has less fat than, yeah, it does. I think it has half the fat of part skim or whatever mozzarella. But it's not bad. I made a pretty good sauce. A lot of different things. Turn the oven on. Bake. Yeah. So the idea is it's not the where Joe went wrong is trying to say it's some sort of Israel thing, because Israel is part of the brainstorming of it and the financing of it. As far as technological financing, but and the intelligence network. But it's not them by themselves. It's a larger plan. Well, I knew when they hit the Hezbollah and they hit the Hamas, again, I didn't agree with the way they did Hamas because I think it would have, in other words, the time frame of the plan, you could have been more careful with the children based on how long it took actually to get to this point. I knew that the call was to take out Iran. Because by the time, if you would have did it slower and more methodically, we still could have did it. If you fed into the AI, let's not kill children and see what happens, probably still would have did it, and maybe actually better because you'd have had less people joining Hamas after you killed the older ones. Because a lot of people joined because of the kids, so it was a bad psychological thing. So that's the balance that they always lose in war. You can't just kill people. You have to figure out how to do it intelligently so the psychology isn't destroyed. So again, it's a very risky, a very dangerous thing, and it was very risky and dangerous when we decided to go after Saddam. But we had some technological advances that allowed us to be safer than people would. Like we were supposedly going to be killed. They had some satellite pictures that told them something, and knew exactly where we were to go in. Now I almost stepped on a mine anyway. So again, it's God. It's not actually the technology in the end, because I walked through a minefield, a small one, but I should, by all counts, could have been very easily dead. Because when everybody was told about the minefield, and again, I knew there were mines because as we were heading for this Republican Guard thing, like the triangular defense thing, out in the middle of the desert somewhere, the track was, we were setting off the small mines, and that caused the track to rock a little bit, but it didn't it didn't harm anybody. Like small anti-personnel, like toe poppers or something. Right. And then when we pulled up, I was covering them with the 50 caliber machine gun as they moved forward, dismounted, and that's when they told them watch out for the mines. So when I found out about it, I was standing in the middle of the mines. So again, it comes down to God being able to protect you. Again, this planet causes God not to be able to protect you, and that's a long drawn out instruction, and I've given it over the years, but it is what it is. So I called Amazon. Shit, what a mess. So the dude told me he'd be able to change the payment method. I received nothing in writing. I'm like, this is fishy. Usually when you get off the phone with somebody, they send you something in writing. Right. So I called him up, and he's like, I'm sorry he told you that. Once we ship it, we can't change the payment method. I said, well, I'm out $45. So I thought maybe they just kicked me $45. Maybe I should have probably asked him. I didn't ask him. Right. But he said you can return it. I'm like, I really didn't want to return it. But he said, if you return it, we can change the payment method. That's stupid. Right. I'd let him charge my Amazon card, and because it's 5%. But I said, I'm allowed to return it. I get, computers, you're supposed to have a specific technical reason to return it. He says, no, you can return. I said, okay. But I don't know what to do. Figure it out. I'll sleep on it. No, I don't like returning big dollar items. Because that's why I spend so much time trying to figure it out while the deep state's effing me. They sit there and F me while I try to figure out what to do in life. So again, somebody dropped the ball on Joe's life, but then again, it may not have been a drop, and it may have been intentional, so that they could burn Joe. Somebody may have been operating him. Like his perception right now may have been created by spies, private sector, government, foreign, domestic, one of the above or all the above. I couldn't tell you that part. Well, it's part of what they do to military people that they want to take out so they can't be used. Right. I mean, I'm sure they find anybody that's deep state probably finds Joe a threat. I mean, you have to. It takes a while to figure out it happened. I mean, I don't know when I mean, I knew somebody was doing something, but it's just like again, they put you to sleep is what they do. So you're not completely understanding of what's going on and what you should do. But at a certain point, you wake up, and the goal is to get you like Jonathan Luna or Dudley before you wake up. But if you have military training like SEER training and stuff like that, your brain gets wired, so it's a little bit easier to deal with it. Survival, escape, resistance, and evasion, or something like that. So I know Joe had some of that. In some ways, it's easier to do it to a military person, but if they had that kind of training, then sometimes it's more difficult. Well, because again, they'll study you first. Then once they learn your psychology, then they'll attack you a certain way, trying to. So a military person can be easier, and a law enforcement officer. I believe it's the same reason why cops have difficulty when they take certain drugs, because your brain's wired different. But like spies know that. So what they try to do is create out of controlness in a person. It's not a control freak, but in your military, you're always this is this, that is that, this is you're always thinking your way through your if you know what you're doing, and if you're good, you're constantly it's contingencies. You're constantly looking at contingencies. So they use that to try to like frustrate your brain, and move you to suicide or violence. They're sickos. So they probably operated him, and that's his reaction. Thanks, Larry. Now, it could just be foreign spies somewhere. And a lot of times the deep state is foreign spies because they don't want certain people in government. They want people they can, dangle, $100 in front of them and they go crazy for it. Kill a coworker for it. Right. So what are we looking at here? All right. No, there's no sure thing about what's going on there in Iran. Again, I don't have, like Joe doesn't have the intelligence. I don't have the intelligence of what's actually happening. Well, because somebody may have found something out. Like I said, when we were going to go in, we were going to be mission. There was no follow-up mission. There was no way that we were going to be mission capable, and that meant, I don't know, 60% to 70% casualties. But like, I don't know how long before G-Day they discovered something and said, go in there. They called off. They were supposed to be the biggest AC-130 Spectre gunship airstrike in the history of those air vehicles there, of those planes, AC-130s, but they called it off. They said there's no need. So again, I think that's where what we're looking at from the Pentagon's point of view, and maybe CIA also, is that they believe at a certain point, it's just going to be mush mined. Everybody left is going to be mush mined. But then again, Iran has such weaponry possibly that makes mush mine dangerous because, if it's got chemical and bio and they start using it, the jury really is still out as to whether Saddam used something and it failed. Right. Again, you got to remember, Soviet bloc stuff doesn't work all that good, but it could make you sick, and a bunch of us got sick. Yeah, just a repeat of the Cold War Soviet issues when the war started. I don't know where they are now. I guess they developed some more. That's why I think if Putin actually killed him, if it wasn't the Ukrainians trying to make people think it was Putin. I think that's why he killed some people because they never really developed the technology they said they developed. Yeah, that was one of the big Soviet Union problems. Their equipment was junk. When they used to arm their mines, they had a wax pellet because if you didn't have the wax pellet, a certain number of them were going to detonate when you armed them. So they had to put a wax pellet in there, and the pressure on the firing pin would eventually eat through the wax pellet. And if it was built right, it wouldn't explode. But if it wasn't built right, it would explode. So like you didn't even want to use their equipment if you captured it. We did like AK-47s. Saddam's people had some AK-47s and stuff. We fired them and stuff like that. But I wouldn't touch their munitions. I had a couple of other grenades. I had a bunch of grenades. I don't know what did I do with those. I can't even remember what happened to those grenades. I think we may have turned them in. I just don't have that present memory. Actually, I may have given the platoon. I think I gave it to this other NCO. I can't remember who for sure, but there was all sorts of stuff. It was neat to look at who. That was one of the things I was doing. I was looking to see who actually supplied them. You know where their munitions came from, and it was you had stuff from some of the Nordic countries down there. It's like supplying Saddam, huh? But actually, CIA supplied him at a certain point also. Right. He was a CIA operator at one point. Same thing as Bin Laden. Now, what happened with Bin Laden is really budget cuts. That's really what happened. That's why he ended up out there like that. They cut the budget. They lost track of him. That's what happened. Because that's one of the reasons I left the government, or the military, because they had budget cuts and they were downsizing, and the government was doing similar stuff too. And that's when it probably led to a balanced budget eventually, but again, it was a small window of balanced budget. What devils? Hear me cooking, so they're cursing my utensils. Oh, I gotta get this thing out for a second so I can finish. Oh, I should cook a little bit more. Well, if they kept the Mujahideen in and budgeted that program, they probably never would have slipped into where they did. And Osama bin Laden was the power dude. Yeah, when I woke up, I started seeing him, and I tried to get him to. I may have tried to get him to surrender from the inside. I can't remember. I can't remember what I was doing. I was inside trying to figure something out because I was just waking up. It was like a year later, I think, or so. Maybe that's how I knew. Intuitively, I wasn't thinking it, but sending the troops up to Pakistan would have found him. Right. Well, again, like I said, it wasn't some plan just Israel. Again, being somebody that was around, I don't know how old Joe is. I think he's a little bit younger, but being around from the beginning, realizing things from the beginning, being part of the Cold War like that. I mean, there's a little more to the whole Iran story, and not that we lost something. It's just no reason for them to exist in that form. Be nice for them to be a nice country, right. Work with all the different countries in that region. The whole goal is to make a pan-Arab Israeli union and just keep working projects, right. Well, I'm going to get this thing rolling up in here. Where's mine? There's no reason. If you have any foresight, you'll realize once Iran's gone, things will simmer down a little bit. And people are having trouble with ISIL and ISIS too. I mean, we need to just get rid of any state sponsor of terrorism, and then work the rest. Obviously, people in Iran are suffering, and for the liberals to bring up some bullshit about how it all should stop. I mean, they're actually. It's really weird because Iran is really losing, and the liberals are running around, and Europe's running around. Oh, they're just save face, and it's all bullshit. I don't know how much they paid these people over the years. That's what it looks like. They all got paid off by Iran. Yeah, I mean, the operators are different than the military people, in special activities division and all that, and counterterrorism. So, again, some of the operators might want Joe out of there, may want somebody else in there. That's how they play it. They're weird. I mean, they're sociopaths. No, because they are people that have embezzled millions of dollars. They just don't want anybody around. Like they don't want Bob Levinson. Well, get it? Right. All right, so let's put this in there. Well, I like I said, I think the answer is for somebody that knows Joe from the war to talk to him and see if we can, make a deal, kind of deal. I mean, be honest, let him just tell him, let's just, tone it down, retire a little bit there. And see, I don't know what his financial, I think he's got money. Well, I don't know what his financial issue or situation is. Again, I can understand if he needs money and he's looking for cover. Well, I guess he's going to run for office or something. Maybe that's what he's doing. I think he's got PTSD. Well, because again, the people that have to make the war decisions can't be doing it based upon PTSD mind. I mean, yeah, as an outside person, send your suggestions into your senator, congressman, your Defense Department or Department of War, as they call it, and that kind of thing. Yeah, that works. But it probably took me a few years to come back to be able to make those hard decisions. It's sad. I mean, war is sad. Right. Again, I couldn't even imagine working after my wife died or was killed, per se. I mean, my wife was killed by spies, but she lived. It was one of those things, right? That's real. They're pieces of shit, man. And then they once they kill her, oh, it's his fault, just to get her to go after me, Don't pay in hell, believe me. I tried to make it so there was no hell, but they just want to keep giving people hell, and God said, hell's on. I'll give it to them. So I would still try to, do an unofficial conversation with Joe. And I mean, if he's trying to be a congressman and he's in there with people got money and they're backing him, but again, I can't understand why he would say it's an Israel thing. That may probably screw him up and make it so he can't be a congressman unless it's some weird location. Right. Kind of like Kanye West. See, they operated Kanye West, I guarantee it. Iran, possibly. Operated Bob. Somebody operated Bob. That's why he made the wrong decisions. That's what spies do. Make people make the wrong decision. Sometimes it fits a government requirement. Sometimes it fits a deep state requirement. Deep state being Satan. Some tofu on the top. Fried tofu. But it's the super tofu. So it's actually kind of a thicker, it's not that mushy stuff. There's no way that some underling created that program. I mean, she was a fall girl. She knew it. Right. Well, if you don't agree being a fall girl, and you end up talking to Tucker Carlson, and Kash Patel looks at you. All right, let me see what I got here. Yeah, it's down there. Let's see if that works. I don't know if I'm going to eat it. I just want to cook it, have it. You found some activity and you go, get out of here. They probably blocked the broadcast. I'll have to download it. They authenticate your account. Here we go. Yeah, I have to see. They'll probably try to put something in my head about Ethan. Elon's doing it to you. It's Elon. X rules. I don't know what you're talking about. You send to my email now? Oh, Jesus. It could be somebody hacking around me. I don't know if you all know that. And then they want you to blame the social media thing. Right. Authenticate. What the hell's going on here? Enter verification email. There it is. She charged $29 million to treat just 84 kids. The Bloomin is Medicaid's fastest growing jackpot. This is just disgusting. I couldn't even get, like, for years, I couldn't even get $300 extra a month. Meanwhile, people walking around with absolute millions. They're probably deep state. Well, because, like, when you want to do Larry, you tell Larry to go get some autism treatment, and then she does you. That's why they pay them. Right? Yeah, it's just disgusting. They have to throw the Dems out with all the fraud. They can't be re-electing them in there just because they're mad at Trump. I mean, they should figure out that the country's messed up from all that. Oh my! I mean, it's just ungodly the amount of fraud. Like, I knew they were doing it, but I didn't realize it was like that bad. Like a bunch of like Somalis would just get hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, I'm struggling for a few hundred more. Right. Yeah, we need the election integrity there, McCormick, man. Yeah, it's time. I mean, we gave him years. At first, I was against it because it was too much too soon. Allahu Akbar with Palestinian flags. Yeah, you're gonna have some trouble in Australia. You know what the weird part is? If you're just like a white dude from the United States, it's very difficult to get into Australia. If you're some Middle Eastern terrorist, they let you right in. It's amazing. Right? Actually, it's one of the most difficult. I don't get it. You know, it's one of the most difficult countries to actually move to and actually, you know, get the visa and get to stay. But if you march down the street in where is this? Sydney, Pitt Street Mall, screaming Allahu Akbar, you're in like Flint. All right, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.